Everyone always said that buying condoms is easier than doing nothing. This is a complete bullshit. I went to the pharmacy and went to the condom stand. I thought, that's shit, I think I need a deodorant. I took a deodorant and a pack of condoms. I came to the queue in front of the checkout and one old lady told me, "Sorry, son, you won't be offended if I ask you how old you are." I answered, 16 years. She clenched her lips and her physiognomy took a judging look and she said, "Isn't that too much, to buy this?" At this time, 5 people in a row were staring at me, which made me angry, and I answered her visibly, "What, Grandma, is it better for me to do without this and pray that my girl does not fly?" She was offended and, in any case, she shut up. After that, my turn came and the fucking cashier took a pack, smiled and said, "Are you buying for the first time? Are you fucking crazy? Do I have to ask this?" I didn't give a fuck anymore. I just answered, "No, the second one." Although in fact it was the first time. I hate such people. Why can't you just buy condoms? When she asked you if you were too young to buy one, you should ask her if she was too old to ask such stupid questions or say that there are no age restrictions for using deodorants. Or that it's for a school project, in which you need deodorants and condoms. Cashier, do you need a bag? Me, no. I'll put them on right away. Cashier, do you need a bag? Me, no. It's not that scary. Cashier, do you need a bag? Me, no. I'll just turn off the light. When I bought condoms for the first time, the cashier, an old woman, smiled and wished me to have fun. The first time I bought them, the old man with the walkie-talkies gave me 5. My boyfriend used to buy condoms in a pharmacy, but now we buy them at Walmart, since a pack with 3 condoms in a pharmacy costs the same as a pack with 12 condoms at Walmart. In addition, there are self-service cashiers there, which allows you to avoid curious eyes. Where I live, condoms are distributed for free in the local health center. You just need to come up, knock on the window and ask for condoms. Some time ago, when the guy and I decided to break away a little, I went there to get some. Usually my boyfriend takes them, so it was my first. I had no idea what condoms he prefers. One woman opened the window, I explained to her what I needed and she asked me what condoms I wanted to take. I must have looked puzzled and she began to explain to me what options they have and how they differ. For example, they have such ones with the taste of tutti frutti, which are called Niam Niam, 1 of 10, tastes like shit. And I left there with 15 different types of condoms in my pockets. It was awkward, but I got some. 100% I will go there more than once. I bought condoms Nospark when I was 9 years old. I tried very hard not to laugh when I made a purchase. At the same time, I was also scared. Imagine such a small, stupid, fat boy with a terrible hairstyle. Do not believe, a black dude working at the cash register said, "Who are you fucking with? Aren't you too young to buy such a thing?" You are absolutely right. Gives lunch without marriage. Do you want advice? You need to be confident in yourself, never be nervous when buying condoms. Be sure to go to the family planning department, and if someone looks at you crookedly, let your look tell him, "Yes, I'm already fucking." Put on dark glasses and go pay. Sad music reading asterisk a professional advice, order condoms online if you have a permanent partner. 50 packs from different companies cost about $20 on the website condomusa.com. Or you can buy them at about the same price, but in smaller quantities, and you won't have to face all this shit. I've been having sex for 7 years, but I still can't afford to buy them. But having sex without protection is also not an option, because I don't want to hook up anything. It is important to remember about protection. Reads the text nevertheless, some people refuse to sell even emergency contraceptives to women because of their religious views. Sometimes this happens. My friend's grandmother works in the hospital and my friend has literally a ton of condoms. When I need a condom, I take it from my friend. Not for sex, I have never had it before. Just go to the self-service store and you won't have to talk to anyone at all. Why do people get angry when you reads the text? When I bought them for the first time, the cashier, who was 17 years old, just said, "Hey." He blinked at me and broke the pack. It turned out to be funny. A few weeks ago we had a sexual education lesson. We were given condoms for free. I took a pack of 30, so I won't have to buy them for some time. Every time I buy condoms, everything goes quite well. Everyone understands that this is not their business. Although I live in Finland, and here people almost never get into other people's business. Once we were not protected during sex, I pulled it out quickly enough, but my girlfriend wanted to know for sure. I was very embarrassed in the store, because I bought about 20 packs of condoms, 2 tests for pregnancy, just in case, and a chocolate bar. The cashier didn't say anything, she didn't even brush her eyebrows. It was a 25-year-old woman. It surprised me so much that I didn't take a change. I'm also 16 years old, by the way. The point is that you don't need to show your excitement. They just envy someone who is waiting for a pleasant evening. Reads the description, saw me and said, "Oh, hi. What are you buying?" I said, "A chewing gum." She bought it for me, and I went to another store later. Nevertheless, I almost got burned and experienced a real shock. The first time I bought condoms, I think I was 18, the young cashier told me that he couldn't count me, because according to his religious beliefs, he couldn't touch them. He looked at the condoms very embarrassed and, one might say, was afraid to touch the packs. I waited at the cashier for 10 minutes, 4 people stood in line for me, until the manager came and counted me. It was a very long 10 minutes. Find the youngest cashier and go to his cashier. Young cashiers will definitely start a conversation. We cashiers are younger, we just want you to pay for the goods and leave as soon as possible. We literally don't give a fuck about what you buy. I work in a pharmacy and once a young man asked me if we sell condoms to those who are not 18 yet. I answered, yes, and if you are not 18 yet, please buy them. Buy something unusual with condoms plus tape condoms plus hot ketchup condoms plus fried chicken. I bought condoms for the first time when I was very drunk. I was studying in college at that time and a girl said that condoms are not an option. I called a taxi to the pharmacy at 1 a.m. and rushed there. In my state, I didn't know where they could be located and how to pay for them. So I just went to the cash register and stuck condoms to a poor young girl who worked that night. She said and told me where to find them. I'm not sure I could have bought them if I wasn't drunk. At school I knew a very friendly guy named Joe, who was very religious. He worked as a cashier in a local store. One evening, I went into his store with several friends to buy strawberries with whipped cream for the parents of one of us. We saw that Joe was standing at the cashier and decided to play him a little. We grabbed a huge pack of condoms and a little grease. Joe's expression was priceless, although we had to listen to a sermon about the consequences of an immoral lifestyle. When I bought condoms for the first time, the cashier literally mocked me, "What the hell, lady? I'm only 17 years old and I don't really want to be a young father." One day, the guy and I bought condoms and the cashier, who counted us, said, "Have a nice evening." To which my boyfriend replied, "Thank you, the evening promises to be very pleasant." I don't go with him for condoms anymore. Once I bought condoms at 13 years old and of course it was very difficult. The cashier still did not want to break them. She even said to me, "Isn't it too little to buy such a thing?" I answered her, "Either you sell them to me, or my girlfriend gets pregnant and she is only 13 years old." I got my condoms and later used them as balloons. Reads the description. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to not miss new super interesting discussions. In the meantime, we suggest watching our other videos. I found this really old footage of the first time I ever explored an ancient city in this world. I was absolutely terrified while I was playing, and so I thought this was the perfect backdrop to read some scary Reddit stories. These stories are mostly from r/nosleep and have mentions of death and blood and all that fun stuff, so if that's not really your thing, no worries, I'll see you in the next video. But anyways, if you're still here, thanks for watching. Let's read the first story. You're going to notice a woman in your home. You must ignore her. It was December of 1999 when she infested our quiet Midwestern home. My father called me from downstairs. I assumed it was time for dinner. He was standing at the bottom of the stairs and had his hand up in an effort to keep me from coming down. The moment I saw panic in his eyes, I knew something was wrong. "I want you to listen to me very carefully," he said. My heart started to race as he continued. "It's very important that you keep your eyes on me. You're going to notice someone else in our home, but you must ignore her as much as possible." I almost started laughing. My 12-year-old mind was trying to comprehend what he was getting at, assuming that this was some sort of out-of-character joke. Before I could respond, he continued, "She's going to whisper things, follow you, and whatever else she can do to get your attention. It's going to be very difficult, son, but you must never interact with her. I promise, eventually she will leave, but only if you pretend she isn't there. And try not to think about her. Promise me." There were so many things that I wanted to ask him, but I was too frightened and confused. I managed to spit out, "Okay, Dad. All right, now come downstairs. It's time for dinner. And hurry, I've just made her stronger by telling you that. But I had to, I can't afford you looking at her by mistake. Trust me, now stay focused." My dad barked. I did as I was told and slowly crept down the stairs, keeping my eyes glued to my father's as he backpedaled into the kitchen. I felt the temperature drop significantly as I reached the first floor. I smelled a familiar, sickeningly sour scent in the air. It reminded me of the time a raccoon died in our wall and stunk up the whole house for a week. My father and I sat down at the table at the same time. My sister was across from me. Her head hung, and her eyes stared at the empty, porcelain plate in front of her. My mother pulled a casserole out of the oven. Her eyes were swollen and tear-stained. I kept my focus on my family, but out of the corner of my eye I could see a blurry mess of dark, matted hair and sickly gray skin. There was no energy in the kitchen. Drained of all the warmth and laughter that usually accompanied our meals. My sister grabbed my knee under the table and whispered, "Can you see her too?" I nodded. "Quiet," my father hissed. The woman walked forward with wet, crackling footsteps. The smell was nauseating. She crept towards the table, stopping directly behind my sister, only a few inches away, and rested a decrepit hand on her shoulder. She winced in fear and stared at me. I immediately put my head back down. My mother served our dinner, doing her best to pretend as if everything was okay. I could see my father clutching my sister's hand underneath the glass table in an attempt to keep her from completely losing it. My sister spent the entire dinner with the skeletal hand on her shoulder. Nearly inaudible whispers spewed from the woman's mouth and filled the room like white noise. And that's how we lived for months, doing our best to live a normal life despite the ever-present unwanted guest. Even if we left the house, she was somehow able to follow us all. Whenever the four of us were in the car, she could be seen in the rearview mirror, or standing on the side of the road. My parents didn't let anyone visit, and never let us stay at friends' homes during the months of hell. We were able to whisper to one another when it was absolutely necessary to discuss her presence, as long as she wasn't too close. My father made us promise never to tell anyone. That was the only way to quarantine her, the parasite of attention. We concluded that she infected a single household at a time, unable to be seen by anyone outside the home unless their mind had been tainted with the knowledge of her existence. I learned a few years later that my father had been the reason for her arrival in the first place. His sister, back in the 70s, had been infected from another and it followed my aunt into their home. In 1999, for whatever reason, my father struggled to keep the thought of her at bay. In turn, he brought her back into his life and consequently ours. We kept the promise of keeping her secret from others and it was the hardest thing we've ever done. All of us tried leaving the house as a group and she followed. We couldn't bring ourselves to break our family apart. It was the hardest for my mother, who was stuck alone with her while we were at school and while my father was at work. Everything changed the day that my mother broke. It was a snowy February night and we had finished dinner and my mother decided to go to bed early. The woman was sitting on their bed, making herself impossible to ignore. My mother couldn't take it. I heard screaming from the bedroom, demanding that she leave us alone. My father sprinted upstairs to try and stop her. That was the last time that I ever saw my mother. A pool of blood on the white carpet was all that remained. The woman was still there, but my mother was gone. In the following weeks, she whispered to me. She told me that I could see my mother again. All I had to do was look and ask how. I never did. And the reason that I'm telling you now is because I want you to think about her. I saw her again this morning, for the first time in 18 years. I cannot afford to lose my wife or children to this parasite. I need you to think about her dark hair and gray skin. Think about her and your home. So that she may leave mine. You're already infected. And eventually you're going to notice a woman in your home. You must ignore her. It's for your own good. I'm so sorry. Okay, I think that should be good. Oh, God damn it. No, no. Get me out of here. You know what? I think that's 3. I'm leaving. There's no way. I feel so underprepared right now. I'm just going to go. I'm going to go gear up. I do so little brewing in this game that I had to look up how to make a night vision potion. But I do feel like these are what's going to put us over the edge. This is going to give us our edge on the warden. I don't know, man. My local radio station has been announcing people's names for a while now. I just found out what it meant. For as long as I can remember, WLNK 973 The Link has been the local radio station in my town. It's one of those stations that plays a little bit of everything. Old rock. Some pop hits, even a few talk shows when the ad money dries up. Everyone listens to it. You know, the kind of station that's always on in the background at diners, garages, and grocery stores. I'd been a casual listener my whole life. It's dependable, familiar, safe. But all that changed 3 months ago. The night I noticed something that I couldn't explain. Something no one else seems to believe no matter how many times I try to tell them. It started on a Monday night. I'd been driving home late from work. Flipping between stations when I landed on WLNK. I wasn't paying much attention, just another evening commute. The DJ was wrapping up a song, probably playing something by Fleetwood Mac, when he cut to his usual banter. And now, the name of the night, he said, his voice dropping into a strange, almost playful tone. There was a pause, static buzzing faintly in the background. Then, with eerie clarity, the DJ said a single name. Jessica Browning. It felt odd. There was no context, no explanation. Just a name, dropped into the ether like a stone on still water. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was part of a contest or some weird new segment. But I couldn't shake the way it felt. The delivery was too strange, too deliberate. I forgot about it until the following Monday. I was driving again, same time, same station, when the DJ did it again. And now, for the name of the night. This time the name was Robert Sanchez. Another pause, another song. The pattern continued every Monday at exactly 11:05 p.m. One name, no explanation, just dropped into the void. By the 5th week, curiosity had gotten the better of me. I started listening religiously, notebook in hand. Each Monday night, I'd jot down the name. And each week, I'd search social media, local news sites, anything that might explain what this segment was about. At first, I found nothing. No contests, no winners, no mentions of the names anywhere. But then something changed. One week, the name was Caleb Howard. It stuck with me because Caleb worked at the gas station near my apartment. We weren't friends or anything, but I chatted with him a few times while paying for coffee and snacks. He was a nice guy, always had a smile on his face. I didn't think much of it until a week later, when I stopped at the gas station and saw a Help Find Caleb poster taped to the door. He'd gone missing. The clerk behind the counter, a college kid with nervous energy, told me that Caleb had just disappeared after his shift. No one knew where he'd gone. His car was still in the parking lot. I couldn't believe it. Caleb's name had been said on WLNK exactly a week before. I told myself it was a coincidence, but deep down I knew that it wasn't. I started digging. I went through the names that I'd written down in my notebook and searched for any trace of them. By now I had 6 names, including Caleb's. 3 of them, Jessica Browning, Robert Sanchez, and Caleb Howard, were confirmed missing. Their faces stared back at me from articles and social media posts, plastered with desperate pleas from friends and family. No one else seemed to see the pattern. I tried asking people about the show, but everyone looked at me like I was crazy. A few people said they listened to WLNK, but none of them had noticed the name of the night segment. Some even insisted that it didn't exist. I couldn't explain it. How could a radio broadcast that I heard every week leave no trace? By the time the 8th name was announced, I was obsessed. The name was Emily Carter. I didn't know her personally, but a quick search on social media turned up with her profile. She was 28, lived on the other side of town, and worked as a veterinary assistant. Her posts were filled with photos of smiling dogs and cats, each caption brimming with positivity. I couldn't let her vanish like the others. I sent her a message. It was awkward, clumsy. I said, "Hi, you don't know me, but I heard your name mentioned on a radio station. It's hard to explain, but I think something bad might happen to you soon. Please be careful." She didn't reply. Over the next week, I checked her profile obsessively. She posted like normal. Pictures of her dog. Updates from work. Jokes about her favorite TV shows. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then, exactly 7 days later, her post stopped. I knew what that meant. The next morning, I saw a news article. Local veterinary assistant reported missing. She was gone. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I started visiting WLNK's building after hours, trying to figure out who was behind the segment. The station was housed in an old, nondescript building downtown. I watched it for hours, hoping to catch a glimpse of the DJ or anyone else who might know anything about the names. Nothing. On a whim, I tried calling the station during the day. The receptionist who answered sounded confused when I asked about the 11:05 broadcast. "We don't have anything like that on our schedule," she said. "Are you sure you're listening to WLNK?" "Yes," I insisted. "It happens every Monday night." There was a long pause. Then quietly, she said, "We don't have live programming at that time." Last Monday, the name was Brandon Lewis. I found him online, a local contractor with a wife and 2 kids. I didn't bother messaging him this time. No one ever believed me. Instead, I decided to confront the source. At 10:30 p.m., I parked outside WLNK. The building was dark except for a single light on the 2nd floor. I waited, heart pounding, until 11:05. When the time came, I heard it. The muffled sound of the broadcast through the building's walls. And now, the name of the night. I burst through the door. Inside, the station was eerily silent. The reception desk was empty. The hallways were dark. I followed the faint sound of the DJ's voice up from a flight of creaky stairs to the 2nd floor. At the end of the hallway, a door was slightly ajar, warm light spilling into the corridor. I pushed it open. The room was empty. Just an old desk, a microphone, a tangle of outdated broadcasting equipment. The on-air sign flickered weakly. The static-filled voice of the DJ continued. Brandon Lewis. I stepped closer, and the equipment suddenly shut off. The room plunged into silence. Then I saw it. Taped to the wall behind the desk was a list of names, written in neat, looping handwriting. My heart stopped when I saw the last entry. Ethan Grant. That's my name. It's been 6 days since that broadcast. I've locked myself in my apartment, every door and window sealed. The phone rings sometimes, but I don't answer it. Tomorrow is day 7. If anyone hears this, if anyone knows what's happening, please don't let them say another name. Because no one ever comes back. Oh, shit. Nope. 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 Get me out. Get me out. Absolutely not. Can he laser me? How high do I have to be for him to laser me? Oh, he's just coming up here. Nope. Nope, I'm building the wall. My son's camera monitor alerted in the middle of the night. I checked it and saw my wife and son sitting on the bed. They were not my wife and son. I'm a nurse and I currently work night shifts. It's a total drag, but I'm hopeful that I can go to days soon since some of my coworkers are planning their retirements. Anyway, I was working one night when, just after 3 a.m., my son's monitor alerted me to sound and movement. No big deal at all. He probably just coughed loudly or sneezed or something. He's 3 now, so he generally sleeps all night. I bring it up on my phone, and I see him and my wife sitting on the bed. Again, no big deal. He might have cried out or gotten scared or something. I was about to close the app when I noticed they were acting strange, almost creepy. They were sitting on the bed together, both of them just staring at the camera with blank, emotionless stares. The camera's night vision is black and white, so they had white, eerie-looking eyes. They couldn't move at all aside from their visible breathing. They just sat there staring at the camera. I closed the app and gave my wife a call to make sure everything was okay. I never get to call home on lunch, so in a way this was kind of nice to get to talk to my family while I was at work. It rang a couple times before she answered with a very groggy, "Hello?" It was like she was dead asleep when I called, and she looked wide awake when on the camera. "Hey, are you guys okay?" I said. "Huh? Oh, yeah. Buddy, my son's nickname, came in like 15 minutes ago. Seems so scared, so I said he could sleep with Mama." I was confused there, since I saw them in his room a minute ago. Literally 60 seconds had passed since I closed the app and made the call. "Wait, so you guys are in bed?" I said. "Yeah, I fell back asleep right away. Everybody keeps waking me up." She sounded kind of annoyed. "Hang on a sec." I put her on speaker and brought up the app, hoping that I didn't see it. When the app loaded, I got that pang of intense nervousness in my stomach that I hadn't had in a long time. My heart leapt into my throat. My wife and son were sitting on the bed looking up at the camera. The same emotionless stares. "You guys are in bed, right?" I said. "Yeah, we're trying to sleep." "Well, I'm looking at his camera right now and I see the two of you sitting on his bed." "No, we're in our bed," she says back. "I know that's what you mean, but I'm looking at his bed and the two of you are in there." "Hang on," she says. She's quiet for a second while she brings up the camera on her phone. I hear this guttural, terrified gasp, like she had sucked all the air from the room into her lungs, filling them to capacity. I don't hear this kind of gasp from my wife often. I heard the rustling of sheets and the line went dead. Of course, then I was absolutely terrified myself, so I immediately called back. It went to voicemail, so I called again. I call again and again with no answer. Finally, after about 4 minutes, she calls me. I tell you, that 4 minutes felt like 40 years. "Hey, what's happening?" I ask. She was absolutely hysterical and crying. I couldn't understand a word she was saying. She slows down enough to explain to me that they are in the car and driving to her parents'. She had looked at the camera, and when she had seen what was on it, she got up, grabbed our son, and rushed downstairs and got out the door. Didn't even close the garage. "Don't worry about it," I said. "I'll drive by when I get off and close it. We live in a generally safe neighborhood, so I'm not concerned when the door's up." "You will not go in there," she said. "Hell no," I said back. "Why are we on the camera?" she asked. "Is it a recording?" "I don't know," I said. "I'm going to keep watching it and see if there's anything that I can tell." Do our code words with Buddy. We have code words because we're nerds. We've seen too many pod people and imposter movies. So we decided a long time ago to make code words with each other to be able to tell if one of us was an imposter. I heard her on the phone saying things that we taught our son. He giggles as he says them, since he thinks they're a joke and doesn't have any idea of the real meaning. We're both convinced he's our son. My wife then said her part, and I'm convinced that she's her. We made up these words as a complete joke to ourselves. I never once in my life imagined that we'd actually need them. She got to her parents safely, and it was hard to hang up. I told her we'll figure it out in the morning. Hopefully it was just a glitch. She said that she did not think it was a glitch. When she was running out of the house, she had to run by our son's room and the door was open. There was a little flashing light on the back of the camera that indicates it's connected to the internet. It gives off just enough light that as she ran by, she thought she saw, out of the corner of her eye, a shadowy outline of what could have been an adult sitting in our son's bed. It sends chills down my spine to think about. Knowing they were safe and out of the house is the only thing that kept me at work that night. It was a long 4 hours and I kept checking the camera at every chance I got. Sure enough, they were still sitting on the bed staring up at the camera with emotionless gazes. I studied them to see if I could see any pattern from their breathing or their blinking. Their breathing was steady and looked normal. It was their blinking that would tell me if this was just some kind of bizarre time-looped freak accident video or not. I intently stared at my phone and would count the seconds between each blink. The passing hours are what finally sealed the deal that this was not some weird looped video of some kind. My son's window was visible on camera. And I could see on the camera that it was getting lighter outside of his room. I tried to figure out what the hell I was going to do before I left work. Calling the police came to mind, but I talked myself out of it. First of all, what was I supposed to say? Someone's in my house and looks like my wife but isn't? Worse yet, what if they are entities of some kind and the police do go over and it kills them or something? I decided to tell a coworker about it. He's a firm believer in the paranormal and might have a suggestion. I showed him the video, told him the story. His initial response was, "That's creepy as fuck." But he said that he wanted to go over and check it out. He said that we should both see if the not my wife would try and act like my wife. I told him, absolutely not, and he said that we should at least go to the house even if we didn't go in. I agreed to that since I did want to close the garage. We got to my house and walked around the perimeter first. The curtains were all drawn since nobody was there to open them in the morning. I went to close the garage and suddenly had this overwhelming urge to go inside and investigate. It was like I just had to know what was going on. So we went in. We walked through the kitchen towards the foyer where the stairs were. It was so quiet in the house you could hear a feather drop. We stopped at the bottom of the stairs and waited a few seconds. I looked at the camera app again on my phone and they were still sitting there. I've never been so scared in my life. My coworker put his foot on the first step and I suddenly said, "Stop," loudly. "Forget this, we're out of here," I told him. I started making my way back to the kitchen. We heard a loud creak in the floorboards from upstairs. It's my son's room. He has a very loud, creaky board right in the middle of his floor that is almost impossible not to step on. Come on, come on. I yelled as I motioned for my friend to move his ass. We're out of the house in about 2 seconds. Out on the street, I checked my phone. Now only the imposter of my son was sitting on the bed. The same blank stare. My wife was gone. Holy shit, my coworker says. That was stupid of us. Do not tell my wife that we went inside, I said. I used the garage door opener in my car to close the door. Before we left, I looked at the camera again. My imposter wife was back on the bed with my imposter son, both of them blankly staring up at the camera, blinking every few seconds. That was all about 4 days ago now. My imposter wife and son are still sitting on the bed, staring up at the camera. They haven't even moved a millimeter. We obviously haven't gone back into our house. What should we do? That story is the beginning of a series, so if you like that post, you can go check out the rest. I have all of the posts linked at the timestamps in the description. My dead girlfriend keeps messaging me on Facebook. I've got the screenshots. I don't know what to do. Tonight's kind of a catalyst for this post. I just received another message, and it's worse than any of the others. My girlfriend died on the 7th of August, 2012. She was involved in a 3-car collision driving home from work when someone ran a red light. She passed away within minutes on the scene. We had been dating for 5 years at that point. She wasn't big on the idea of marriage. It felt archaic, she said. gave her a weird vibe. But if she had been into marriage, I would have married her within 3 months of our relationship. She was vibrant, the kind of girl that would choose dare every time. She was happiest when camping, but a total technophile too. She always smelled like cinnamon. That being said, she wasn't perfect. She always said that when she died, she didn't want people to just say nice things about her just because. So this is for M. The music she said she liked and the music she actually liked were very different. Her idea of affection was a side hug, and she had really long toes, like a chimpanzee. I know that's all tangential. But I don't feel right discussing her without you at least having an idea of what she was like. Now, on to the meat. M had been dead for approaching 13 months when she first messaged me. September 4th, 2013. This is when it began. I had left Emily's Facebook account activated so I could send her the occasional message, post on her wall, go through her albums. It felt too final to memorialize the page. I share access to it with her mother, Susan. Meaning, her mother has the login and password, and has spent a total of approximately 3 minutes on the website. Or her computer total. After a little confusion, I assumed these messages were from her. The following are our messages from September 4th, 2013. Emily. Hello? Me. Who is this? It's really weird receiving messages from Emily's account. Okay, well, in the future, please send me messages from your account, even if you want to discuss her page. Emily. Hello? Me. Susan, you're on Emily's account. November 16th, 2013. I had received confirmation from Susan that she hadn't logged into Emily's Facebook since the week of her death. Em knew a lot of people, so I instantly assumed this was one of her more tech-savvy friends fucking with me in the worst possible way. I noticed pretty much immediately that whoever was chatting with me was recycling old messages from our shared chat history. Here were the messages from that day. Emily. Hello? Let's hit up the trails this Sunday. Me. Who the fuck is this? Emily. The wheels on the bus. Me. Please tell me who you are. The wheels on the bus comment was from when we were discussing songs to play on a road trip that never eventuated. Hello happened a million times. Around February 2014, Emily started tagging herself in my photos. I would get notifications for them, but the tag would generally always be removed by the time that I got to it. The first time I actually caught one, it felt like someone had punched me in the gut. She, or whoever she was, would tag herself in spaces that were plausible for her to be. Or where she would usually hang out. I've got screenshots of 2, from April and June. These are the only 2 that I caught, so they're a little out of the timeline that I'm trying to write out. Around this period of time, I stopped being able to sleep. I was too angry to sleep. She would tag herself in random photos every couple weeks. The friends who noticed and said something thought that it was a fucked up bug. I found out recently that there have been friends of ours who have noticed and didn't say anything. Some of them have removed me from their Facebook friends list. I was already pretty socially reclusive when Em was alive, but her death turned me into something pretty close to a hermit, and Facebooks and MMOs were and are really my only social outlets. On March 15th, I sent what I assumed was Em's hacker a message. Me. Why are you doing this? Why do you keep tagging her? On March 25th, I received an answer. Emily. Hello? Me. This is actually devastating. I don't know why you enjoy doing this. Oh my god, cinnamon-scented candles. Go to hell. Why are you doing this? It wasn't until I was going over these logs a few months later that I noticed that she was also recycling my own words as well. My response seems kind of lackluster here. I was intentionally providing him or her with emotional bait to keep them interested in their game. I was working off the assumption that the kind of person to do this would be the kind of person that would thrive on the distress of others. I was posting in tech forums, looking for ways to track this person, contacting Facebook. I needed to keep them around so I could gather evidence. On the 16th of April, I received these messages. Emily. We should make our own jam. Jesus fucking Christ, Samantha. Nah, different. No chance of passing. No chance of passing. How many? Garage side door. Side. I'd no chance of passing. This just seems like word salad, like all of our conversations so far. It's recycled from previous messages she's already sent. On the 29th of April, I received these messages from her. Emily, baked beans on toast. I don't know. I just said, yo, ask Nathan. Nathan. Me, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how you're still doing this. Please stop. Emily, please stop. I don't know what's happening. Nathan, I don't know what's happening. I hadn't discovered any leads at this point. Facebook told me the locations that her page had been accessed from, but since her death, they're all places I can't account for. My home, my work, my mom's house, etc. My response here wasn't bait. Yo, ask Nathan was an inside joke that isn't worth explaining, but seeing her say it again just absolutely fucking crippled me. My reaction in real life was much less pretty. Her last few messages had started to scare me, but I wouldn't admit it at this point. The 8th of May. I don't really have any words for these messages. Here's what they read. Emily at 1 o'clock. -12. -15. Emily at 1:22 p.m. My jumper's in the dryer and it's really cold out. Really cold out. Cold. Cold. Nathan. Please stop. Cold. Freezing. I don't know what's happening. Freezing is the first original word that she has made. This has given me nightmares that have only started to kick in recently. I keep dreaming that she's in an ice-cold car. Frozen blue and gray. And I'm standing outside in the warmth, screaming at her to open the door. She doesn't even realize that I'm there. Sometimes her legs are outside with me. Here's our messages from the 24th of May, just days later. Me. I'm really drunk. I miss you. Whoever's on this account, I don't give a fuck. I keep coming home from work and expecting to see you at the computer. Shouldn't I be used to that by now? Emily. Just let me walk. I wasn't actually drunk in these messages. She wasn't an affectionate girl, and it always embarrassed her to exchange I love yous, cuddle, talk about how much we meant to each other. She was much more comfortable with it when I was boozed up. I got fake drunk a lot. Her reply here is what finally prompted me to memorialize her page, thinking it might help curb this behavior. It might seem innocuous compared to her previous message. It's pasted from an old conversation where I was trying to convince her to let me drive home from a friend's. In the collision, the dashboard had crushed her. She was severed in a diagonal line from her right hip midway down her left thigh. One of her legs was found tucked under the back seat. These messages are going back in time a bit, to the 7th of August, 2012. I wrote, "Hey, are you on your way home? Emily. Me again at 5:54 p.m. When you see this message, please ring me." Straight away. I rang our friend and they said you left at 4, and I'm starting to panic. I feel sick to my stomach. Please ring me. Me again at 5:59 p.m. Emily. Answer your phone. These messages are logs from the day that she died. She was usually home from work by 4:30. This, alongside a couple of voicemail messages, is the last time that I talked to her under the assumption that she was alive. You'll see why I'm showing you this soon. Yesterday, the 1st of July, 2014. I memorialized her page a couple days after I received the message about walking. Until today, she'd been quiet. She wasn't even tagging herself in my photos anymore. Here are the messages that she sent. Emily. Hey, are you on your way home? Emily, a few minutes later, said her own name. Emily, a few more minutes after that. When you see this message, please ring me. Straight away. Please stop. I rang our friend and they said you left at 5. I'm starting to panic. Please stop. Cold. Emily then said a few minutes later. Emily. Emily. Answer your phone. I don't know what's happening. Cold. Freezing. I don't know what to do anymore. Do I kill her memorial page? What if it is her? I don't know what's happening. I just heard a Facebook alert. I'm too afraid to swap windows and check it. Okay, so present day Jamie here. That last gameplay clip you saw was months ago now. So if you're wondering how my gear got upgraded so quickly, that's why. I did get these Swift sneak books from the last time that I went down into the ancient city. So let me just actually put these on my pants really quick. But there's more stories to read. So I'm going to go back down there and voluntarily terrify myself again. I cleaned a dead woman's house and she didn't want me to leave with her things. This story gives me the shivers every time I think about it. A friend of mine invests in foreclosed homes and invited friends and family to come take whatever we wanted from a home that he was buying. When I got there, it was cluttered to hell and smelled awful. Food wrappers, expired milk, recipes from years ago. It was filthy. There were about 15 of us, masked and gloved up, scrapping whatever we could find. But as we dug deeper into the mess, it became sad. Sentimental items started to appear. New clothes that were in gift boxes, old passports that were stamped many times over, handwritten letters, and many photos from the 60s and 70s. I looked over the photos and felt bad that I was scavenging what was left of this lonely woman's life. From the photos, it seemed like she never had any kids and was widowed for a while. I ended up being the last one in the house. The sun had just set, so it was quiet and eerie being alone in the musty old home. My friend was waiting outside, and as I took my basket full of things I scavenged, I felt it. A cold, tight, tingling tug at my right arm. I nearly dropped what I was holding. It really felt like someone tugged me back. My body buckled backward slightly. When I got home, I saw it. Right where I had felt it. The tug, I mean. A clearly pressed handprint on my arm. This isn't a sunburn. It never hurt. The pale pattern of a hand stayed with me for days. I hustled to rid the items. And only after everything was sold or donated did the handprint go away. I found my little sister's diary. I wish I hadn't. My little sister Emily always loved keeping a diary. She had stacks of them. Pastel covers with little locks, each one filled with messy handwriting and stickers. She used to guard them fiercely, threatening to tell on me if I so much as looked at them. But Emily passed away 3 months ago. She was only 11. A freak accident at the lake. She fell in, hit her head on a rock, and drowned before anyone could get to her. The funeral was unbearable, and afterward, I couldn't bring myself to touch her things. Her room remained untouched. Like a shrine to the girl that she used to be. But last week, Mom asked me to start sorting through her belongings. I found her latest diary in the bottom drawer of her desk. It was unlocked. I thought reading it might bring me some closure. I thought it would help me feel close to her again. I was wrong. The first few entries were normal. Today we had pizza for dinner. I took 2 slices before Joey could get to them all. He got mad, but I don't care. That made me smile. Emily always loved teasing me. The next few pages were full of harmless ramblings. Complaints about school, doodles of flowers and stars, lists of her favorite songs. But then, about halfway through, the tone started to change. I saw the man again today. He was standing in the backyard, watching me through the window. I told Mom, but she said I was imagining things. He's always there, though. I can feel him. The man, I thought. I paused, flipping back through earlier entries. No mention of him before. Maybe it was just Emily's overactive imagination. She'd always been a little jumpy, a little too eager to believe in monsters under the bed. I kept reading. The man came closer last night. He tapped on my window. He didn't say anything, just smiled at me. His teeth are so big. I wanted to scream, but I was too scared. I felt a chill run down my spine. Emily's handwriting got messier and messier with each entry, her words more frantic. He stands at the foot of my bed while I pretend to sleep. He whispers my name. He says he's waiting. Waiting for what? I thought. I flipped to the last few pages, my heart pounding. Joey doesn't see him. No one does. He told me not to tell. He said they wouldn't believe me. He said I belonged to him now. I stopped reading. My hands were shaking. This had to be some kind of prank. A make-up story Emily wrote to scare me. But the way she described it, the fear in her words, it felt so real. Too real. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the diary. I couldn't shake the image of Emily, lying in bed, terrified to scream while some stranger stood over her. I barely slept. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed about her. She was standing at the edge of a lake, staring at me with wide, unblinking eyes. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. When I woke up, I was drenched in sweat, and there was mud on my shoes. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I'd gone outside to clear my head and didn't remember. But the next day, I found a page from Emily's diary laying on my desk. I hadn't brought the diary upstairs. The page wasn't one that I'd read before. The page read, "He says Joey will come next." My blood turned to ice. That night, I locked my bathroom door. I tried to convince myself that it was all in my head. That grief was playing tricks on me. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I heard it. A tap. And then another tap. On my window. I didn't want to look. I couldn't. But something made me turn my head. He was there. A man. Tall and thin. His pale face stretched like wax. He smiled at me, baring rows of jagged teeth, and pressed a single finger to his lips. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. When I woke up, it was morning. The window was locked. No sign of anyone outside. I almost convinced myself that it was a dream, until I went downstairs and found another page from Emily's diary on the kitchen table. The page read, "He says it's time. He says Joey belongs to him now. I haven't slept since. I haven't left the house. I keep hearing taps at the windows, whispers in the dark. Last night I found muddy footprints leading from the lake to my bedroom door. I think I understand now. Emily didn't fall. She didn't hit her head. He took her. And now he's coming for me. I have not been back down here since that recording from months ago. And honestly, I had no plans to return. Ever. But I think now my plan is to just mine all of these blocks that are down here and just take this city for all that it's worth." This story is titled, "I Had a Disturbing Conversation with My 7-Year-Old Daughter." Dad, I saw a zombie. I was in the kitchen making tea when my little girl came rushing in. She ran through the back door so fast and she almost tripped up the step. I poured boiling water from the kettle into a mug, hardly looking up. "Oh yeah?" I said. "Yeah, I did." Its face was all pale and messed up. It was gross, Dad. I put the kettle back and picked up the milk and sighed inwardly. I really had to be more careful about what I watched on TV in the evening. Rosie has a habit of sneaking downstairs in the night, and last week she caught me watching The Walking Dead, of all things. She's had zombies on the brain ever since. I keep telling her they're not real, but it doesn't seem to make a difference. "Sweetheart, what did we say about zombies?" I scooped the tea bag out of the mug and dumped it into the bin. "You know if you keep talking about them, you're going to get in trouble with Mom again." "Yeah, but I saw one," she said. "I know, darling, but I already checked the back garden twice yesterday, and I can promise you it's a zombie-free zone," I said back. "Didn't see it in the back garden, though," she explained back. I had the mug half raised to my lips, but now I put it down again. I turned to look at Rosie. Her hair was windswept and her little cheeks were red, as if she'd been running. I put on my best stern, Dad's not happy voice. "I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with me. Have you been playing along the path out back again?" I didn't really need to ask the question, because I already knew the answer. Rosie's allowed to play in the back garden on her own, and sometimes, if she asks us permission first, we let her ride her bike along the path out back of our house, the one that runs past our neighbors' back gardens. But that is all we allow her to do. This area is pretty safe, but these days you can never be too careful. There was a burglary a couple roads over a few months back, and last year someone got mugged on the high street. Several years ago, a few towns over, a little boy went missing. That was quite a long ways away from here, of course, but it made national news for days and the search eventually fizzled out, and had a lot of parents being more cautious. Rosie's getting older now and she's an adventurous girl, but still, you have to have boundaries. And on a few occasions lately, Rosie's been crossing those boundaries. Riding her bike out further than she should. Not coming home straight away when we call her. Sneaking out the back gate when she's only meant to be playing in the garden. Just being a curious kid. As I watched Rosie now, I noticed her face growing redder. She looked away from me, down at the kitchen floor, and scuffed her feet. "Dad, I only went a little way down," she said. "I promise." I was chatting to Mr. Henderson because I saw him in his back garden. I said hello and made him jump. I sighed. So there it was. Mr. Henderson was Rosie's zombie. Yesterday it was the postman, and the day before that it was a different neighbor. I took a sip of tea and shook my head. Mr. Henderson was, in fairness, a better candidate than the others. The guy lives on his own and looks about 100 years old. Moles all over his face, skin like a deflated balloon. Whenever we chatted over the garden fence before, though, he'd always seemed nice enough. Just a bit lonely. I couldn't have Rosie going around calling him a zombie. "Listen to me," I said. "I know you didn't go far or anything, but I don't want you to." She cut me off. I came right back after too, Dad. Rosie was staring up at me now. Blue eyes, large and pleading. "I promise." And I even said no when Mr. Henderson offered me an ice cream. "Because I know you don't like me taking stuff from strangers." I opened my mouth to respond and then paused. He offered you ice cream? Yeah, but I said no. Mr. Henderson really wanted me to come in and have one. But I told him I had to get home, and then straight back here to tell you that I'd seen a zombie, and I. Rosie was babbling now, her voice whirring like a motor. But I'd stopped listening. My mind was still stuck on something she'd said a moment before. Mr. Henderson really wanted me to come in and have one. I thought about that more, and I took another sip of tea and frowned. That wasn't good. I don't mind the neighbors chatting with my daughter, but I don't like the thought of them inviting her in. Not without us here. Not even if they were just kind, lonely old men. I made up my mind to go around and tell Mr. Henderson later, and to tell him myself, kindly, of course, but also firmly. In the end though, I didn't get a chance, because a few moments after I'd had that thought, Rosie said something else. Something that pushed everything else from my mind, and ended any idea that I might have had about going over to Mr. Henderson's house. She said something that made me feel cold. Dad, please don't stop me from playing in the garden. I promise I won't sneak out again. I don't want the zombie to get me. Rosie, I said back, I'm not going to stop you from playing in the garden. But you have to make me a couple of promises, too. First, promise me you'll stop going around calling people zombies. Mr. Henderson may be old, but he's not one of the living dead. Rosie frowned. I didn't. What do you mean you didn't? You just ran in here a moment ago calling him one. No, I didn't, she said. Mr. Henderson isn't a zombie. I saw the zombie in his house. But it wasn't him. I frowned, and I had the mug raised to my lips to take another sip of tea. But now I put it down again. What do you mean? You saw someone else in his house? Yeah, the zombie, Dad. I could see it pressed against his little basement window while I was talking to him. Cold fingers ran up my spine. What? Yeah, it was really scary. Its face was all bashed up and bloody and its mouth was open, like it was screaming at me. But do you know what confused me most, Dad? I tried to keep my voice steady. What? Well, I didn't realize kids could be zombies too. I thought it was only grown-ups. But I guess I must have been wrong because the one in Mr. Henderson's basement looked just like a little boy. Alright, this story is from r/paranormal. I died for a few minutes and now I'm convinced that there's something after death. I never believed in anything. Not in heaven, not in souls, not in the stories of people who said that they had seen the light. I'm a psychologist and I always thought that consciousness was just a product of the brain. Until my heart stopped. 3 years ago I had a cardiorespiratory arrest. While I was sleeping. The next thing I remember was a deep silence. Not darkness, not emptiness, silence. It was so dense that it felt alive. As if the silence were something. I suddenly had the sensation of having left my body, but I couldn't see it from the outside. It was more of an expansion. I no longer had limits. No time, no space. But somehow it was still me. And there I felt it. A warm, familiar energy. I didn't see her, but I recognized her with complete certainty. She was my grandfather. There were no words or images. Just direct understanding. A kind of invisible hug that told me, everything's fine. Then a sound appeared. Low and constant, like a rising vibration. And around me, thousands of lights, floating and beating, each one with a different identity. And I knew, without anyone explaining it to me, that they were souls. When I was about to join them, I felt a pull, a force that tore me from that place. A paramedic was reviving me. My partner was crying. From that day, everything changed. I'm not trying to convince anyone. But what I experienced was more real than anything in this world. And since then, I accompany people who are grieving or close to dying. I sometimes perceive that same vibration in the air, the deep calm impossible to describe. I don't know if it was the afterlife or just a state of consciousness that we still don't really understand, but I know what I felt. And since then, I'm no longer afraid of death. I was clinically dead for a few minutes. I felt absolute calm. I recognized my grandfather without seeing him and saw thousands of lights that looked like souls. Since I came back, I'm not sure that death is the end. Please don't call another one. Oh my god, I just called a second one. Okay, pillar. I have to pillar. I have to pillar up. Oh no. Oh my god. That doesn't sound good. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. We gotta get out of here. Andrew Pearl. Go, go, go. Oh, nice. I think I dodged the second shot. Why is he so fast? Oh, my God. Okay, there's my stuff. Thank God. This would have been a complete disaster to lose all of my stuff. Okay, that's all the scary stories and bad Minecraft gameplay that I have for you today. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching. If you like these stories, you can check out the authors on Reddit. They're listed in the description. Okay, I'm gonna get out of this ancient city. This place gives me the creeps, and I'm gonna lose all my stuff. Okay. What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix or unexplained thing that has happened to you? I live in a very remote area, so I know for a fact that we are the only residents here. One night I was taking out the trash, and as I approached the road, I distinctly heard a woman's voice say, "Help me." Even though I knew it was highly unlikely there was a living soul for miles, I felt I had to look around just in case. I took about 2 steps in the direction the voice came from. And then I heard giggling. It was the same voice. I immediately turned around and speed walked back to the house because nope, anyone who actually needs help does not giggle. When I was a kid, my sister and I were walking home from the park and heard a man yelling for help. We found an open manhole. The voice seemed to be coming from down there, but we could not see anyone. I was 9, and in a panic, I thought we should climb down and help him. My sister, who was 11, smartened up and said we needed to get our parents. When we came back with our parents, the man was gone. As an adult, I realized it was probably just a stupid prank, but back then, it was terrifying. I was walking my dog, and we were almost at the street. I looked down for a split second, looked back behind me, and suddenly I was about 6 blocks away from where I thought I was. I was completely disoriented. I looked at the dog, but he seemed fine, acting normal. For the record, I do not drink or do drugs, and I am young and healthy. It was 1985. My ex-wife and I were sleeping. A street light cast a thin strip of light into our window, so you could barely make out the room. Our black Pomeranian was sleeping at the foot of the bed. I dreamt that I woke up and reached out to pet him, but he turned into a black, slimy oyster monster with a gaping mouth and rows of glass teeth. I woke up because my ex was scrambling up the wall, pushing the mattress. I asked what happened. She screamed, "What is that shiny black thing with teeth on the edge of the bed? Where is the dog?" We had the exact same nightmare at the exact same time. I still get goosebumps from that. I was fixing my motorcycle in the mud right where I had crashed it trying to drift. I broke the clutch and the gear shift lever. I brought a set of wrenches and used one to loosen a bolt. I loosened it a bit and put the wrench on the ground to finish unscrewing it by hand. 2 minutes later I went to pick up the wrench, and it had vanished. I searched absolutely everywhere in that mud, but it was useless. Luckily, I had a spare in the car. After fixing the bike, I went home to shower and wash off the mud. I walked into my room and saw the wrench lying on my desk. I was stunned. It is always the 10mm wrench, isn't it? I was driving about 50 miles per hour and saw a car run a stop sign at an exit and shoot out right in front of me. I remember bracing for the collision, and then suddenly, I am 500 meters down the highway, watching that same car in my rearview mirror. As someone who has seen all the Final Destination movies, I can say with confidence that you died. You died in that moment, and your mind is living in an alternate reality. I remember driving, stopping at an intersection in a rural area, and looking around to check for traffic. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my mom. She said something like, "It is clear on this side." I turned to look back, and she was not there. My mother had been dead for several years at that point. It was broad daylight. Nothing like that has happened since. I am 100% sure I remember a dog that apparently did not exist. When I was 16, we lived on the other side of the province, and my uncle had a small Jack Russell Terrier named Crew. Crew went missing for a few months and then was found with some people an hour away. We were all shocked that this little dog had run so far. Anyway, this was almost 20 years ago. I recently mentioned this dog to my parents. Every time I hear about a Jack Russell, I think of Crew. They did not understand what I was talking about. They had no idea what dog I meant. They insisted my uncle never had such a dog, that I must have dreamt it. Honestly, everyone else who would remember the dog is long dead. And I have no photos of my uncle. I have no way to prove the existence of this dog, but I am sure he existed. Maybe they just forgot. But it feels like a glitch. One day at 6 p.m., as usual, I left work and started my commute home on the train, which takes an hour. After I sat down, I immediately passed out and woke up right before my station. The bus from the station to my house takes about 15 minutes. During the whole trip, I did not check my phone or look at a watch. When I got home, my family was very surprised. "You are so early? Is everything okay?" I looked at the wall clock, and the hand was just passing 6. I was shocked. I did not understand how that happened. I checked other clocks, my phone. The time was accurate. A few days later, HR emailed us the monthly timesheets. It showed that I clocked out around 6 p.m. that day. Basically, it was definitely not me, but someone else who left work that early. Or I teleported. I still cannot understand where those extra 60 to 90 minutes came from that day. Today marks 1 year since my wife died. Several strange things have happened to me. For example, I found a couple of old, meaningful photos lying in the pantry. But the weirdest thing was when I was vacuuming the carpet. As soon as I finished, I saw her diamond ring on the floor. Right where I had just cleaned. It was as if she was letting me know, hey, this is important, do not lose it. It is really touching. My friend Sasha was at a nightclub, completely wasted. At one point, she had an overwhelming urge to tell a total stranger that her leg hurt. It did not actually hurt. It was a very strange feeling. She tried to ignore it, but the urge would not go away. So she went up to some guy and said, I know this is weird, but I have a strong urge to tell you that my leg hurts. I know, it is wild, sorry. And then this guy starts sobbing. It turned out his father had died very recently. And before he died, they agreed that if the afterlife exists, he would receive a message, a random phrase, so he would know for sure. That phrase was, my leg hurts. I was about 12 years old. I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I walked down the hall to the small bathroom, turned on the light, and was about to walk to the toilet. Suddenly, I looked up and saw a face in the mirror. It was not my face. It looked like someone was standing on the other side, to the right, watching me through the mirror. I saw the face for only a brief moment, but I remembered it for a long time. I screamed and ran out of the bathroom to find my father. Of course, my dad went to check it out, and then calmed me down. We prayed together because I was terrified. And somehow I fell back asleep. Fast forward to when I am 30. I had already forgotten about that incident. One night, while visiting my father, he gently brought up the topic again. Remember you once saw a face in the mirror? It suddenly came back to me in a rush of memory, and shivers ran down my spine. Yes, I remember. Well, he said, sometimes I think about that night. He looked thoughtfully at the floor. I saw him too. He described exactly what I saw. We have no idea what it was. As it turns out, when he went to check, he saw the same thing I did and was scared to death. The prayer we said was just as important for him as it was for me. I am grateful he kept it a secret until I was 30. But I wish he had never told me. I had one very important document that I kept in only one place. In the top drawer of a small filing cabinet. I never moved it from there. And whenever I opened that drawer for any reason, I saw it lying there. The day came when I needed it. I was not even worried because I knew exactly where it was. I will be damned, it was not there. I had a panic attack. I turned the whole cabinet upside down. I took everything out and laid it on the floor. I went through every paper, checked every envelope, shook everything out, shined a flashlight into the empty cabinet just in case it got stuck in the sides. It was not there. I assure you, no one took it or tried to prank me. I was completely crushed. I even checked other places in the house. But I was sure it would not be in any of those places, and it was not. In between searches, I went back to that stupid cabinet. Nothing. On edge, I searched the rest of the house again, and walking down the stairs to where my filing cabinet was, I screamed in total frustration. Okay, just give it back. I do not know who I was talking to since I was home alone, but as you can guess, I found it in the top drawer of the cabinet, where it was supposed to be originally. I felt relieved, of course, but also pretty freaked out. I was 13, and my dad was a coal miner. He worked the third shift, which was from midnight to noon. He would come home around 2 in the afternoon and sleep until about 9, get up to have dinner with us, and go to work. My dad was always pretty tough and constantly yelled at us if my brother and I made too much noise and woke him up. Which, as an adult, I totally understand now. Anyway, one time I somehow woke him up again. He called me into the bedroom. I was waiting for him to start scolding me. But he just looked at me and said, "It is okay, come give me a hug." What 13-year-old boy wants to hug his dad? I started to reluctantly shuffle around, to which he said, "What if something happens to me?" Exhausted, he dropped his head onto the pillow. I never hugged him. That night there was an accident at the mine. He saved everyone in his crew, including one worker he had to go back for. He was the only one who died in the mine. And I am sure he knew it was going to happen. I will never forget how he looked at me then. If someone asks you for a hug, give them a hug. I love you, Dad. Question to those who were reported missing. What actually happened to you? I left a home where I was being treated poorly. I left a note clearly stating my intention never to return. An hour or two later, I got a call from the police station saying they received a report about my disappearance. I explained the circumstances to them, and since I was an adult, I had every right to leave. They simply wished me luck. It was 3 years ago. I had an emotional breakdown in 2015 after I lost my job. The whole year was tough. So, I packed a backpack, got on my motorcycle, and rode to another city to clear my head. I took enough cash to last a week, turned off my cell phone, and just left. For a whole week, I chilled on the beach, partied, went to bars and clubs. I stayed in a hostel and hung out with other travelers. Overall, it was an amazing week. Relaxed, I packed up and started riding home. At an intersection, cops pulled me over. It turned out that 2 of my former colleagues, whom I had seen after being fired, were worried about me. They went to my house to check on me, and my housemates told them they had not seen me for days. They searched the whole city and then reported me missing. The police checked my records, phone activity, and saw I had not been on social media or called relatives. While I was trying to escape my crappy life, everyone thought the worst. The police flagged my motorcycle plate, and when I got on the highway, it popped up on their computer. The cop was polite, he just wanted to make sure I was okay. He called dispatch to take me off the missing persons list. In Australia, you are only removed from the list after a police officer sees you in person. I work in an ambulance, and once we were called to a man complaining of leg pain. We arrived to find a very polite kid sitting by the side of the road. His feet were covered in massive blisters. He told us he had gone to a relative's funeral, got very upset, and decided to take a walk to clear his thoughts. So he walked. And walked. For 4 whole days. It turned out he lived in the same town where I grew up, 400 kilometers away. We talked about the town, the good local pubs, and so on. He admitted he was slightly depressed and might need professional help. Unfortunately, we could only give him a ride to the hospital. Later that shift, I was on Facebook and saw a school friend posted about a missing person. It was our walker. I called the police and told them where the poor guy was. They were very happy. My brother was listed as missing for a whole year. He had disappeared before, but only for a few days. He has paranoid schizophrenia and often suffers from hallucinations. We live in New York, and our parents had no idea where to look. For a year, we constantly went to the police to identify bodies. He had no friends or girlfriend to go to. He just vanished. A year later, we got a call from a hospital in Washington. My brother was picked up on the street in a very exhausted state. It turned out he went to Washington to warn the government about some threat due to his illness. He refused to eat because he believed the food was poisoned. The only reason he was still alive was that homeless people took care of him. He looked nothing like himself when he was found, covered in flea bites. Physically he is healthy now, which cannot be said for his mental health. At least he has not tried to run away again. When I see homeless people on the street, I always remember this case. At least now you know for sure that you have good neighbors. One of my first memories is of getting lost. When I was 5, my family went on vacation to Scotland. We ended up in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but forest. There was not much entertainment, so my sister and I decided to play hide and seek. I had the brilliant idea to hide right in front of the front door of the cottage where we were staying, under a huge bush. I watched my sister look for me for about 5 minutes, then she obviously gave up and went inside. However, I do not give up that easily, so I decided to sit in the bush until I was found. After a short time, 15 minutes or so, more people started joining the game. My parents ran one way, then the other, and I watched them and giggled, thinking how clever I was to hide so well. More and more people joined the game, including vacationers from other cottages, park staff, and police officers. I just kept sitting in the bush. Many hours passed, it got dark, and I was enjoying the game. My sister was only 7, so she did not participate in the search, she just sat on the porch. When darkness fell, my yellow jacket started to stand out, and finally, after searching the entire forest all day, my sister realized I was sitting right in front of her. The best game of hide and seek in my life. I do not remember how old we were, probably about 10. My friend and I decided to rake fallen leaves from our neighbors' yards for money. We went from house to house offering our services for $5. Eventually, we visited so many houses that we reached an intersection and realized we did not know where we were, as we had never left our block before. Then it got dark, and we could not read the street signs or recognize anything familiar in the dim streetlights. Finally, while walking aimlessly, we heard a police siren and saw the lights of a cruiser. The cops stopped beside us and asked for our names. They put us in their car and drove us home. To 10-year-old boys, it seemed like a very long drive, although we had actually only gone 4 blocks. We got in so much trouble with our parents. They even took our hard-earned money. This happened about 10 years ago. I had just moved to California with my now ex-husband. Our downstairs neighbor was a crazy addict who constantly harassed us and picked fights. One time, the neighbor on our floor decided to renovate his apartment. The downstairs neighbor ran up to us and started threatening us, thinking I was making the noise. It was impossible to reason with her. Every time I left the house, I tried to be as quiet as possible so she would not go into our apartment while no one was home. Anyway, I wrote an anonymous complaint to the building management and reported her to the police. It turned out there were many complaints against her. My husband picked me up from the police station and we went for lunch. The idiots from the management company went to the neighbor and told her about my complaints. When we returned, she was banging on our door and screaming. We just left, to hell with her. We went to Walmart, bought a tent and gear, and drove to Yosemite for the weekend to clear our heads. We managed to sneak back into the apartment quietly, slept a bit, and whispered to the nice neighbor that we were going camping for the weekend. Then I texted my mom, brother, and sister. But for some reason, only my sister received the message. During my last phone call with my mom, I told her about the neighbor downstairs threatening me, and then I disappeared. We came back 4 days later. My voicemail was full of desperate messages from my mother and brother. They went to the police, saying the downstairs neighbor had killed us, made masks out of our skin, and was wearing them. My mom did not believe the neighbor who said we went camping. She thought he was covering for the crazy woman because her daughter hated camping. It is true, it was my first camping trip ever. After 3 days of anxiety and suffering, they finally called my sister to tell her I had been killed. My sister laughed and said I was camping. Mom went silent and then asked, "What? Why do you think that?" She texted me, "Why did you not call me when you started thinking she was murdered?" When we drove home and I got a signal, I listened to all these messages and immediately called my parents. And then the police to cancel the missing persons report. Years later, I tried to joke about it. Remember when you thought the neighbor killed us? That was a crazy weekend. No one laughs yet. Probably too soon. My favorite story on this topic involves my cousin. He was 4 years old, and we were vacationing at the beach with the whole family. At one point, he just vanished. We searched for him for hours, called the police. It turned out he went to a hotel 2 minutes from the beach to take a poop. He met other kids there and started playing with them. All the adults thought he was the son of hotel guests. He even had lunch there when the buffet was served. Meanwhile, we were ready to hire scuba divers to look for him at the bottom of the ocean. She exaggerated. Legally, they were not allowed to tell her about me, so they asked me to call my mom and explain everything. When I left there, I saw messages from so many people asking if I was alive. Even people from my old job wrote to me. It turned out my best friend and my brother texted my ex-boyfriend, but he ignored them and did not tell me they were looking for me. If he had told me, I would have asked him to tell them where I was, and all this hype could have been avoided. I felt very awkward that I made so many people worry for nothing. When I was about 6, my family was on vacation in Yosemite. We stayed in a small tent camp. There I met a kid who was a little older than me, and we went to explore the surroundings. We wandered too far and met a bear cub in the forest. We just stood and stared at each other for a few minutes. Then we went our separate ways. When we returned to the camp, park rangers were already searching for us. My parents were going crazy. For some reason, my story about the bear cub did not seem as cool to them as it did to me. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you do not miss new super interesting discussions. In the meantime, we suggest you watch our other videos. Ladies, what is something men should stop being insecure about? Nothing bad will happen if you turn out not to be the smartest person in the room. Admitting that you don't know or understand something doesn't make you weak. However, an excessive desire to out-argue everyone turns any guy into an arrogant jerk. You reminded me of a quote, "If you are the smartest person in the room, then you are in the wrong room." The ability to admit ignorance immediately makes you smarter than half the people out there. I didn't know that, thanks. I have friends who are terribly insecure about the fact that they can't grow a beard. To be honest, it doesn't matter at all. One guy replied, "I don't know what I would do without a beard. How else would I hide my face from everyone? I have 2 bald patches on my jawline, making any attempt to grow a beard look very strange. It's not that I want a beard for style, although that would be nice. I'm just tired of shaving constantly." Another user said, "Do the John Wick beard. Keanu has a patchy beard too, but it still looks cool." Yeah, but that is Keanu. He can do whatever he wants. I'm sure many guys just clicked on this thread to see an answer about their size. I wouldn't believe them anyway. It's the same story as girls being insecure about breast size. There is no sense in any of this. My husband married me when I was absolutely flat-chested and looked like a boy. Now I've aged a bit, had 2 kids. My chest got bigger, and my husband likes it just as much as he liked my old chest. Regarding being skinny. I used to be a very skinny guy, and I can say for sure that if you eat junk, it won't last forever. A warning to all teenage guys worrying about being too thin. If you can eat everything in sight and not gain weight, there is a huge chance this will end soon. And you will have the exact opposite problem. A girl replied, "I love skinny guys. Their thin legs drive me crazy." Damn, that's me. I can't gain weight at all. It's gotten to the point where I'm shy about eating when someone else is sitting nearby. Bro, you need to show off. Eat constantly in front of everyone, let them envy the fact that you don't get fat. Balding. So many guys try to hide their bald spots, get transplants, and constantly wear hats. Dude, just trim the sides short with a clipper or shave it all off. Most girls find this attractive. I have a friend who is starting to show the first signs of balding. He is very calm about it, says that one day he will just shave it to 0. His confidence is very attractive. In reality, it doesn't matter what is on your head, the main thing is confidence. You don't need to worry about liking girly things. You can safely order fruit cocktails, watch romantic comedies, and sing in the shower. Contrary to your beliefs, other people don't care. Singing in the shower is girly? I love singing in the shower, and pretty loudly too, lol. I think it depends on what you sing. When I'm cleaning, I love to scream some thrash metal. Hardly call that girly. I'm observing a great example right now. I'm at a pool party. There are 2 cool, slightly chubby guys just standing in the pool wearing t-shirts to hide their bodies. And then there is a third heavyweight, who is about 30 pounds heavier than the first 2. He isn't wearing a shirt, and he is having a hell of a time. Playing games with everyone and constantly joking around. Believe me, girls consider this guy much more attractive simply because he isn't ashamed of his body and radiates confidence. Should these 3 lose weight? Yes, absolutely, like most of us. But you don't need to be ashamed and deprive yourself of fun. Live your life and have fun. This attracts other people. This is just my opinion. I am a middle-aged woman, and it seems to me that I have some life experience in such things. I've seen it all. Ha ha. Regarding him being too fast in bed. Sir, I am Speed. I don't see anything terrible about this. I would never judge someone for something they can't control. The only thing is, the guy shouldn't think the act is over just because he is. Finished. Do not be ashamed of your tears. Crying men are my kryptonite. I want to love them and hug them forever. You just found your ideal match. I cry into my pillow every night. It's not that simple. Because I was told all my life that men don't cry, don't be a wimp. I didn't cry for about 10 years. But then my cat died, and that event broke my long refusal to cry. It was the only event in 10 years that really got to me. Fortunately, I feel better now. I know a bunch of guys who are wildly insecure about acne. I tell them that everyone has it and everyone worries about it. But they usually reply something like, "At least girls have makeup to hide it." So I taught some of them how to use concealer so they would feel a little more confident. Regarding their butts. Unless Captain America walks into the room, you are fine. Too bad you didn't write this 3 months ago when I signed up for the gym. What am I supposed to do with my muscular butt now? You don't need to be so insecure about your body. To please a girl, it is not at all necessary to have huge biceps and abs that resemble a washboard. Well, thank God. He strokes and soothes his belly, which he shouldn't worry about. Just came here for a second to boost my self-esteem. My husband told me yesterday that since he got fired, he feels like an incomplete man. He worries that he can't support us anymore. But for now, I'm handling it myself. He is looking for a job and started doing more around the house. For me, he would only be an incomplete man if he gave up on everything and played video games all day. As long as he is productive and trying to fix things, I am happy. I love it when I'm in a cozy pizzeria and I hear the cooks singing in the kitchen. And it doesn't matter that they aren't the best singers in the world, I just love it when people are happy and love to sing. Let me tell you, as a cook, we don't sing because we are happy. We sing because it stops us from going and strangling the next lactose-intolerant jerk who asks for a special pizza during rush hour when I have 40 orders on the table. How many sweet lies are in this thread? Insecurity about height. I know there is a popular opinion that all guys under 6 feet are screwed. But if a girl decides not to date you because of a few missing inches, believe me, she is not worth your time. I am short myself, but many of my tall girlfriends date guys who are shorter than them. There is nothing wrong with that. So, here I am, balding, getting fat, soon to be bearded, short, and with a small package. Ladies, attack. Danny DeVito, you will always be in our hearts. You don't need to be afraid to show emotions, especially in relationships. I know many guys were told that emotions are something girly. But honestly, when a guy openly talks about his feelings and doesn't try to suppress them, it improves life for everyone. When a girl thinks that only she has feelings, it becomes difficult for her to trust the guy. And guys are often misunderstood because they don't show what they feel. Guys, just know, there is nothing wrong with being emotional. Thanks to this, you can be honest with the people around you and happier in relationships. I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that many guys are very insecure about their hairstyles. One friend told me that every morning he spends 15 minutes styling his hair to look more or less okay. Honestly, I don't pay attention to guys' hairstyles at all. Unless, of course, they stand out in some way. I am a descendant of Native Americans, and I have just terrible hair. When it's short, it sticks out in all directions. When it's long, I look like a damn Mowgli. Girls don't understand me when I complain about my hair, and they always give me compliments when I spend a hell of a lot of time on it. There were comments above from guys who can't grow a beard. Here is the flip side. Guys shouldn't be insecure about being too hairy. I love chest hair and see no problem with hair on the back and shoulders. Just like with everything else. Yes, you might run into girls who don't like it. But if a girl is ready to write you off because of something physical, something that is out of your control, then most likely she is not a match for you. But despite everything said above, it is important to remember hygiene. If you have a lot of hair, you might sweat more, depending on the climate and body temperature. But if you shower regularly and keep yourself clean, then everything is good. Edit. Yeah, there is nothing wrong with a hairy back, legs, and everything else either. The only thing, I might ask a guy to trim his nose hair if it sticks out. And that's only if it isn't camouflaged by a mustache. I subscribe to every word. It makes me sad when I see guys shaving their chests supposedly because girls like it better. A hairy chest is very attractive. Agreed, but if a guy is serious about getting rid of chest hair, it's better not to shave it completely so there isn't sharp stubble. Don't be afraid to seem feminine if you like a cute dog, or if you like wearing pink, or if you are very friendly and smiley. Girls like all of this, and it really annoys them when guys worry too much about masculinity. You don't need to worry too much about money. Yes, women pay attention to the financially successful, but this is just one criterion out of many. If your finances are the only thing important to her, then what will happen in a few years if you, for example, lose your job? Most girls don't expect you to constantly act like a macho man and prove your masculinity. This is all imposed on us by society. There is nothing wrong with admitting that you are scared. There is nothing wrong with saying you are depressed. There is nothing wrong with not getting into a fight after any insult directed at you. Nothing wrong with just being a living human being. If you like playing video games and eating pizza on weekends, no one can reproach you for that. There are plenty of girls in the world ready to say, "Cool, give me a slice and the second controller too." If a girl doesn't meet your standards, then you don't need to adjust to her standards. Relationships should be equal. You should share your lives, even if you don't have big plans for each other. If you stop watching your favorite show for her sake, for example, then you start adjusting to her. And that's not worth it. We don't necessarily need you to have a pumped up body. Just eat right. Many bodybuilders have a very unhealthy diet. Plus, bodybuilders often force their girlfriends to exhaust themselves with workouts. What is pleasing to the eye is not always pleasing to everything else. And purely visually, big muscles don't appeal to everyone. A lot of what girls are writing in this thread is great, of course, but these are just words, pretty words. In truth, girls care about the size of your package and your height. And they actually consider showing emotions to be something weird. Real life is very different from everything written above. Thanks a lot for watching. Ladies, write in the comments what guys should stop being insecure about. And I also suggest watching the video about the person who made 3 million edits on Wikipedia. It seems terrible, but actually, it's harmless. Taxi and Uber drivers, what is the strangest and most interesting thing you have overheard while driving a client? Let's find out. I worked as a taxi driver while I was in college. Around that time, my girlfriend, whom I had been dating for about a month, confessed to me that she had another guy from Germany. She told me everything about their relationship and admitted that she planned to move in with him soon. Naturally, we broke up. A few months passed. I picked up a drunk couple near a bar. They sat in the back and started kissing. I realized the guy was speaking German. We drove to the girl's house, and she got out. Then the German guy said we were going to his place. On the way, he started telling me that he had recently moved in with his girlfriend and finally waited for her to leave for the weekend so he could cheat on her. Then he added that American girls are very attracted to guys with accents, and his girlfriend has no idea how often he messes around with other girls. As you probably guessed, it was that same guy. I drove him to my ex-girlfriend's house without saying a word. I wonder how they are doing now. I work for Lyft. Once at 11 p.m., I got a request to drive 4 passengers from Boston to a casino in Rhode Island. It was at least an hour drive, but I accepted anyway. I arrived, and 4 middle-aged Asian men met me and explained in broken English which way was best to go. Now for the weird part. While we were driving, for the entire trip, they said only one word, caramel. I am not kidding, grown men sat in my car and took turns saying the word caramel. It was not a joke, they were not laughing. There was no reaction, just caramel. They would whisper it, or sing it in different tones. Sometimes in unison. Sometimes they would pause for 10 minutes and sit in silence. Guys, it was weird. When we arrived, they asked me to wait for them and drive them back. I bailed. That was the wildest thing ever. I am not a driver, but once when we were in Vegas, I was riding in a taxi with my wife and heard our Pakistani driver discussing my wife's appearance on the phone. He was not aware that I learned Urdu during my military service. I had to surprise him. And I did. When he handed me my change, I said thank you, goodbye in Urdu. And then for about 5 seconds, I sat with a stupid smile and watched him have a stroke from such a plot twist. I once drove 2 divorce lawyers who were representing opposite sides in the same case. They spent the entire ride discussing options on how to drag out the divorce process as much as possible. I assume to make more money? Yes, they have an hourly rate. It is a fairly common phenomenon for lawyers to intentionally delay cases to rip people off. But when 2 lawyers from 2 sides conspire with each other, that is just too much. It was night, I missed the last bus and called a taxi. As soon as I explained to the driver where to go, his phone started ringing. He apologized and closed the partition between us so I would not hear him. But something apparently went wrong because I heard him very clearly. I heard him whisper, "I will take a kilo, I will be there in 20 minutes. Then he lowered the partition, apologized again, and as if nothing had happened, started asking me about a recent football match. Such a nice driver. Just to clarify, this was in South Florida, so there is a huge chance he was talking about coconut. Or maybe not. Taxi drivers are ideal candidates for transporting stuff. They are constantly on the move and rarely searched. Plus, if you get caught, you can make up a ton of plausible excuses. I had one regular passenger, an older woman who always had to look after her 5 grandchildren because her children could not handle them. I drove her to shopping malls, to the bank, took the kids to school. I did a lot for her. And then she started calling me at night, and it turned out she was working as a lady of the night. I moonlighted a bit as a taxi driver in Boston. One time a very beautiful couple gets in. Or rather, I thought it was a couple, although the man was clearly older than his companion. They started discussing out loud their move from Boston to Paris. I got very interested, so I decided to ask when they were moving and for how long. I got the answer, "We are flying tomorrow." And then, during the conversation, it turned out that the man was married to another woman. His wife had gone somewhere for the day, and he decided to take the moment to calmly pack all his stuff and run away from her and their 3 children. When I dropped them off, the man asked if I wanted to drive them to the airport tomorrow. I refused, which is why he did not leave me a tip. I should have said yes and just not shown up. Screw such jerks. I work as a taxi driver, currently waiting for an order and writing this post. About a year and a half ago, several guys hopped in near the campus and asked to be taken to a city 40 minutes away. The fare was going to be decent. While we were driving, it became crystal clear that the dudes had stopped by the campus to sell some snow near a club. They often switched to Spanish, which I partially understand, and if I caught it right, they managed to move about half a kilo. When they paid me, I saw they had huge wads of cash. The funniest moment of the whole trip was when the oldest one started panicking and demanded we stop for some soda. I think he was high on his own supply. Luckily, I had an unopened can of energy drink handy. He drank it and left me almost a 100% tip. It was one of the most profitable trips of all time. A guy sat in the back seat and discussed on the phone a story about when he pooped his pants, in full detail. I work for Uber as a side hustle, mostly at night. I always start my shift in the party district near the university. Here are my favorite passengers. A 20-year-old girl who repeated one word the entire trip, pancakes. And she did it so abruptly. Pancakes. Sitting next to her were her slightly less drunk friends apologizing for her. A couple sitting in the back doing all sorts of dirty deeds. I think it was a one-night stand. My only request was not to make a mess in the back. They listened to me. An Asian man in his 50s whom I picked up in Koreatown. He tried to convince me the whole way that a woman needs to be slapped for prevention, so she listens. I wanted to tell him what a moron he was, but I was too tired and realized it would end with me throwing him out of the car. Generally, no matter how interesting the overheard conversations are, the most interesting trips are when lonely passengers talk to you like a counselor. For me, Uber is like a bar, only without the hangover. Most of my passengers are very cool people. I often get invited to parties. Maybe one day I will actually go to one. I was finishing my night shift, drove my last passenger to the airport. Just as I was pulling away, I saw a guy sitting by the curb, about my age, sobbing. I usually try not to stop in such moments because I know a traffic jam will form behind me immediately. But something was clearly wrong with him, so I decided to stop and find out what happened. I jumped out of the car and asked if he was okay. The guy barely gathered his strength and, gasping through tears, began to explain his situation. He needed to get to Duluth, Minnesota, a 2.5-hour drive. But no taxi driver wanted to pick him up because it was already too late. At that moment, I was fighting terrible depression, which felt like an endless war I could not win. And I felt strong empathy for him. All he needed was a little help. I showed him my driver app on my phone, pointed to the Uber sticker on my car, and offered to drive him for free, no meters or payments. He agreed, gathered his stuff, and we left. We drove to Duluth. We did not talk. There was no need. About an hour into the trip, he came to his senses and asked to use my phone. I agreed. From his conversation, I overheard that he had lost everything. His wife and children had recently died in a car accident. He lost his job, lost his house. And he needed to get to Duluth to see his father, who was on his deathbed. When we arrived, he tried to shove some money at me, but I did not take it. I was struck by the fact that he offered me the last thing he had. A few crumpled bills and pennies wrapped in plastic. He was clearly very grateful, despite losing everything. I was glad to take a load off his shoulders. We drove 2.5 hours and did not say a word to each other. It was nice to know that I could still be useful to someone. When I got home, I woke up my mom and hugged her. There was one drunk passenger who called a girl on speakerphone and tried to invite himself over for the night. She rejected him so harshly that I almost died laughing right there. I am a passenger, but one time I got a driver who described in detail his love for acid, and he was currently on it. When we arrived, he offered us some. Was that trip a 5-star or a 1-star for you? I think the rating depends entirely on the passenger. 5 stars. The driver was awesome. We drove for 35 minutes, so it would have been very awkward to drive that long with a boring driver. I want to tell you what one of my passengers did. The kid was about 14 or 15. Looked normal. He was one of my first clients on Uber. So, we drove a few miles. The trip was supposed to be about $15. But shortly before arriving, he texted his buddy to log into his Uber account and cancel the ride from his phone. Uber has this thing where if the ride has already started, you cannot cancel it from your device, but from another one, no problem. So I drove him, swiped that the ride was complete, and saw what I got for the order, $0. Little jerk. Fortunately, it ended well. I called Uber support, explained what happened, and got my money back, but still. What kind of jerk do you have to be? I am not exactly a driver, but I work in Uber support. Oh, you have no idea what happens in taxis. 90% of my work is calling drivers and passengers and resolving their conflicts. During trips, everything happens. Accidents, passengers going to the bathroom right during the ride. There are serious fights between passengers and drivers. And for various reasons. From racial issues to a passenger simply not wanting to tip. If I describe the darkest stuff here, I will get banned quickly. I do not recommend my job to those who do not want to be disappointed in humanity. My taxi driver buddy once got $500 for letting a passenger do number 2 right in his car. Passenger, we are driving non-stop. $500 if you let me do this. I promise nothing will get on the seats. We have 2 options. Either he was in a huge hurry, or he planned everything in advance, since it is strange that he had $500 in cash. My buddy agreed. The dude did his business on a newspaper and threw everything out the window. My friend got $500. He also had a story about driving a guy with a heart attack to the hospital. Think about it. This idiot called a taxi instead of an ambulance. To me, that is total darkness. You cannot set up unsuspecting taxi drivers like that. Thank you very much for watching. Taxi and Uber drivers, write in the comments what is the strangest and most interesting thing you have overheard while driving a client. And do not forget to check out our other videos. Bye. Share stories about times you wanted to look cool but ended up embarrassing yourself. Story 1. Once, I met a very beautiful girl and asked for her phone number. She reached into her bag for a pen and paper to write it down. Cell phones were not that common back then, but I stopped her. I said, "No need, I will memorize it." And I did remember it, for exactly 1 hour. After that, I could not recall a single digit. Story 2. I decided to show off in front of the class by bringing a harmonica to show and tell. Most kids brought their teddy bears or some rocks, but not me. I was going to play the harmonica. When I told my mom about my plan, she was delighted. We constantly played Name That Tune at home, so I thought I had this in the bag. I stood up in front of the class, showed off my harmonica, and asked if they wanted to play Name That Tune. Everyone leaned forward, very interested. It was my minute of glory. I blew into that thing until I turned blue. I felt like a real professional. The whole class just sat there with their mouths open, silent. Nobody guessed the melody. Humiliated, I told them it was Old MacDonald Had a Farm, then went back to my seat. In reality, I did not know how to play the harmonica at all. My mom just always knew I would play Old MacDonald, so she always guessed it right. Story 3. My college PE teacher asked me to help him demonstrate some jumps. I only had to show basic skills, but after I did that, he asked me to show a few tricks. I gladly agreed because more than half the group consisted of pretty girls. I had a few moves up my sleeve to impress them, so I started with a double backflip. It turned out great, except for one thing. As soon as I landed on my feet, I farted. It was dead silent in the gym, so no one had any doubts about what just happened. Some of the girls giggled. I showed a few more moves and got out of there as fast as I could. Story 4. I threw a party at my place. Drinks were flowing like a river. I was sure everything was going perfectly. A girl I had a crush on said she wanted a drink. Trying to make a good impression, I rushed to the patio to get her a bottle from the fridge. Someone had closed the sliding glass door to keep the heat in. I ran full speed into the glass door face first. It rang so loud everyone looked. Sparks flew from my eyes, and I cut my lip. One very quick-thinking friend shouted through his laughter, "I did not think that would happen," and demonstratively gave me a high five. He saved me from total humiliation. The girl was kind enough not to mention it, other than checking if I had a concussion. Always check if the glass door is closed before running into it. Story 5. When I was in high school, I had an uneven hairline. So I decided to fix it a little bit with a razor. As a result, my hairline turned into a perfect triangle pointing down. Now, when I look at school photos, I realize I look like a vampire. Story 6. I was standing in the water talking to a cute guy. I decided to dramatically flip my hair back into the water to get it out of my face. At that moment, a huge wave came out of nowhere and hit me right in the face. Water went up my nose, I started coughing violently and dropped my beer into the water. So much for being sexy. Story 7. I decided to buy a sports car. I chose a red Porsche. During the test drive, I stopped at a traffic light where a lot of pedestrians were waiting to cross. I put the top down and started winking at the girls in the crowd. The light turned green, I put it in gear, but I stalled the engine. The crowd laughed, and my brain shut down. I forgot how to start a manual car from a standstill. I had to wave at the cars behind me to go around. I finally got it moving, drove a few blocks to the next intersection, and stopped at a red light. The same pedestrians were standing there. I smiled broadly at them to hide my embarrassment. I was 25 years old behind the wheel of a new Porsche, and again, I could not get the car moving. I decided I needed to choose a different car. Story 8. Heading to the pub with friends, I decided to show off and jump over the last 4 steps of the stairs. When I landed, a terrible crack echoed from my knee. After 8 weeks of doctors and physical therapy, it turned out I had a torn ACL. I had surgery 6 months later. I could not play sports or exercise for a whole year. That was the second decision in my life that I deeply regret. Story 9. I was riding my bike to a friend's house and suddenly saw the 2 most popular girls in class on the street. I did not expect to meet them. They saw me and called out to say hi. I hit both handbrakes at the same time. The bike stopped instantly. I was thrown over the handlebars, but I did not let go, so the bike flipped over me. I got off with minor scratches, but this happened right in front of the 2 coolest girls in school. I was 13 years old. Story 10. A beautiful classmate I was in love with invited me to a Valentine's Day party. I decided this was my chance to win her over. I wanted to seem even cooler, so I decided to pretend to be drunk. We were served pizza and soda. I pretended to pass out on the couch because I was sure that cool guys get drunk and pass out. Later we went to the yard to play soccer. I fell and shouted, "Damn, shouldn't have drank so much." After that, I was not invited to parties anymore. For a while, I was left without friends entirely. Story 11. In middle school, I wore a belt holster for my flip phone. I thought it made me look like a serious businessman, but it really just made me look like a dork. My dad used to wear one, and he looked like a total nerd. Story 12. In middle school, I tried many ways to stand out. Every day I went to school in dress pants and a Hawaiian shirt, with a bowler hat on my head. I also carried a bamboo cane and rode a skateboard in that outfit. If you think about it, if this happened a few years later, I would have been the king of hipsters. But this was the 90s, so I just got beaten up. Story 13. Around the age of 13, I decided I would seem interesting if I spoke as little as possible. I managed to go without a single word or laugh in shops and other places. I decided to try this at school too. Every day I came home surprised and crying that I had no friends. Who knew that no one would want to communicate with people you cannot get a word out of? As for those poor sales clerks and other adults I was so rude to, I can only hope they were not too offended when I did not answer them. This went on for about 6 months until I realized that silence does not contribute to making friends. Story 14. As a child, I thought it would be cool to act mysterious at school. I spent all recess staring intently out the window. One girl came up to me and asked what I was looking at. "A bird," I replied. She asked me where the bird was. I replied that it was not a real bird, but an imaginary one. I was sure she decided I was a very interesting and deep person. Although in reality, she probably thought I was crazy. Story 15. In the 2nd grade, I winked at random students and teachers in the school hallways. Everyone probably wondered who this weird 7-year-old kid was hitting on everyone. In my head, I was a vampire hunter protecting humanity, and winking was my secret signal. Story 16. I had a hard time in middle school. I filled water balloons, attached them to my chest, and put on my mom's bra because I wanted everyone to think I had grown boobs. Oh my god, what was I thinking? Story 17. The day after a heavy downpour, I saw a very cute girl while riding my bike. I decided to stop and introduce myself. As I approached her, I hit the brakes, wanting to say, "Hi, can I get your number?" But I only got to hi when my wet brakes let out a horrific screech. The bike did not even slow down. I had to ride past her with my brakes howling like a ghost until I was at least 20 feet away. Embarrassed, I started pedaling fast, pretending I never intended to stop near her. I just wanted to look cool. Story 18. I was about 7 or 9 years old, and I had an argument with a friend. I started pacing around the playground, hands in my pockets, trying to pretend I was ignoring him. With my hands still in my pockets, I tried to jump onto a relatively small curb but tripped. I tried to pull my hands out to break my fall, but they got stuck. I just face-planted into the sand like a trussed chicken. When I remember this now, it is funny, but back then it hurt. Story 19. Once I was walking around the neighborhood with a baseball cap on backward, big sunglasses, and a boombox on my shoulder playing the Smurfs album. It was a cassette where popular pop songs were recorded with Smurf voices. It was my favorite album at the time. I ran into 2 older guys who took my boombox, turned on the microphone, and recorded various obscenities over the songs. Story 20. I decided to try a self-tanner because all the popular girls in school had tan skin with a beautiful bronze tint. I went to the pharmacy and bought the cheapest bronze lotion I could find. I came home, applied the lotion thickly on my arms and legs, and did not wash it off for several hours, following the instructions. I will never forget walking into school the next day. I walked into the first class in shorts and a t-shirt. Everyone, even the teacher, stared at my skin, which was Oompa Loompa orange and very streaky. Everyone was silent until one girl said, "Wow, I did not know it was fashionable to look like that now." Everyone laughed. It was very awkward. I still avoid any tanning products. Story 21. My biology teacher asked me to name the largest single-celled organism in the world. I replied, "Your mom." After that, there was a dead silence unlike anything I have ever heard. Story 22. When I was in the 3rd grade, a new girl named Valeria came to our school. She was from New York, specifically the Bronx, and seemed very cool to me. She had a tough character but was also sweet. I wanted to be friends with her, but since she was tough, I decided to pretend I was tough too. I lied to her, saying I lived in a dangerous neighborhood, that a guy once pointed a gun at me, that I fought with many girls, and so on. I do not know how all this came into my head, but I lied a lot. I lived in a quiet suburb and never fought anyone. I am 28 years old, and I still have not been in a fight. And I have only seen a gun on TV. I do not know why I decided to lie to her about all this, but she liked me anyway. We soon became best friends. After the 6th grade, I moved, and we stopped being friends. Not long ago I saw her on Facebook. It seems life has been rough on her. Story 23. I was 13 years old and into skateboarding. My friends and I liked wearing tight pants. This was back in 2004, before stores started selling skinny jeans for men. You will not believe it, but we wore women's jeans because they were very tight. No one outside our group knew about it, except for a couple of people. To this day, it is hard for me to believe I stooped so low. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you do not miss new super interesting discussions. In the meantime, we suggest you watch our other videos. What is the strangest, coolest, or funniest way you found out a girl liked you? Story 1. She texted me, "Hey, can I ask you a weird question?" I said yes, and she replied, "Never mind, ask me in 5 minutes." I am not a coward, so I asked, "Do you want to go out with me?" Life tip, you will be amazed, but if a woman asks if she can ask a random or weird question, it means she has been thinking about it for weeks. Story 2. She was just a pretty girl on the bus, definitely out of my league. One day the bus was very crowded, and we were standing very close to each other. So she just put her head on my shoulder and looked at me. She said, "Can I stand like this the whole ride? I am comfortable with you." She was my first girlfriend ever, so that was nice. Story 3. She brought me sandwiches to school every day for a month. I had absolutely no idea why until my buddy explained it to me. The only thing on my mind was, free food, nice. I interpreted it as her thinking my parents were too poor to feed me well, and she felt sorry for me. Story 4. I seemed to hit it off with a girl from my hostel when I was in Warsaw at a party, but I was not 100% sure she liked me. She asked for my phone to text her friend to let her know she was okay because her phone had died. Then she went to the bar to get us drinks. Naturally, I read the text, which was something like, "It is me. I am with a cute guy from our dorm. This is his number. Tomorrow at 11 in the old town, so do not wait up. Fingers crossed and wish me luck." Story 5. The next day I missed my train to Berlin. I was at a bar, and a girl I thought was way too cool for me came over and started a conversation about the sports team logo I had on my t-shirt. She offered to buy me a drink and then started flirting. I stood there dumbfounded and could not connect two words. She stood there for a couple of minutes and left. My friend, who was with me, called me a colorful name and asked why I did not keep the conversation going. I felt so stupid. Story 6. In college, I lacked confidence. I asked a friend who never had trouble with girls for advice. He said the next time I see a girl I like, I should ask her something crazy. Like, "What color are your panties?" I rolled my eyes. Terrible advice. He said, "Just try it." I did not believe him. Later that evening, I was talking to a female friend, telling her about this terrible advice I received. She asked what it was. I said, "Well, what color are your panties?" She said, "Black. Next year we are celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary." Story 7. She made her friend corner me by the school lockers between classes. "Hey, look, that girl over there likes you, you have to ask her out." After a week of my hesitation and more than a little patience on her part, I finally asked her out. Now we are engaged. Story 8. I was sitting next to my friend who was with his girlfriend, and he had his arm around her. I decided to make a joke, wrapped my arm around the empty space next to me and said, "Yeah, I have a girl here too." After that, a girl who had been hinting for a long time that she liked me, slid under my arm and smiled. Being a ladies' man, I laughed awkwardly and said nothing. Story 9. I had been talking to this girl for a few weeks and thought things were going very well. We were both going to the same party, so I called her and asked if she needed me to pick up anything to drink. She told me what to get and asked how much it cost so she could pay me back later. Hoping for our first kiss, I said, $8, but you can just pay me back with a kiss. She replied, "Oh, $8? Okay, I will pay you back at the party." I did not expect to be rejected like that, but that is fine. I went to the party with no intention of talking to her, but she was hanging around. At the end of the night, she hands me $8, and I say, "I think that is better than the other option, right?" Confused, she says, "What other option?" Turns out my phone died right after I said $8, and she did not hear the rest. She quickly took her money back and chose the second option. We have been married for 2 years. Story 10. I went with a girl to a farm fair. She wanted to look at the rabbits, and when we approached, one of them squatted and started doing its business. During the process, it kicked its mess with its hind legs, and most of it landed on us. She was in a stupor for a whole minute while I tried to find napkins, and then she said, "Well, the moment cannot get any worse, but I want to date you." Story 11. I was at a street party. A cute hot girl turns around, smiles, and asks for a lighter. Being a gentleman and a stupid idiot, I hand her the lighter and smile politely in return. That is it. 20 minutes later, some dirty guy asks her for a lighter, and she pulls one out of her purse. And they start chatting. Never felt stupider. Story 12. I was 15 years old, and I never had a girlfriend. I was wandering the streets with friends one Halloween evening. My friends ended up meeting a group they knew, and we continued walking together. As we walked down the road, one of the girls just grabbed my hand and would not let go all evening. Then she stepped away somewhere, and her friends caught me and started asking, "Do you like her? You know, she thinks you are cute." Well, being a kid, I just said, "I do not know, probably." Obviously, I liked her, and I was just amazed that the stars were falling at my feet. At the end of the night, we walked back to the cars, wished each other sweet dreams, and she quickly kissed me. Long story short, she was my first girlfriend, and we dated for about 2 years. Story 13. The summer before college, I worked at an amusement park. One day I was working next to a cute girl. We chatted a bit during our short break. Talked about where we were from, pets, what cars we drove. She finished work a couple of hours before me. We said a quick goodbye, and I went back to work. When I was getting ready to go home and started my car, I noticed a scrap of paper under the wiper. She left her phone number and invited me to hang out that evening. Story 14. Once, unexpectedly, I received a long message from a girl saying that she was not looking for a relationship at the moment because she had just broken up with a guy and the breakup was very painful. I was upset but respected her wish. After a while, she called me and explained that among her friends there is another person with the same name as me who is trying to flirt with her, but he is weird and she does not like him. She accidentally confused me with the other guy in her phone. She apologized and said she likes me too. We have been dating for 5 years. Story 15. She invited me to go to a dance with her just as a chaperone. I liked her, but I agreed to go with her just as a friend. I tried to keep my hands to myself and respect the just friends rules. When I dropped her off at home, she kissed me. Many years later, she told me that the whole evening she was hoping I would take the initiative, but got tired of waiting, so she took matters into her own hands. Story 16. I was chilling on the grass during an outdoor festival when a girl literally jumped on me and said, "Oh my god, I saw you at the pub in town, you have to meet me at the camping area later." I went to the camping area later, but there were 5,000 people or so I never saw her again. Story 17. I fell in love with a girl I went to college with. She invited me to her parents' house to watch a movie. I arrive with 2 bottles of wine, we enjoy them and watch the film. Then we go upstairs to go to sleep, and she says that when her parents are not home, she sleeps in their room, not hers, but as a guest, she allows me to sleep in either of them. With my chicken brain, I thought I was being tested and had to choose one of the options. I say that sleeping alone in her parents' room is kind of weird, so I choose her room. She looks very confused, says okay, and we go to separate rooms. A few months later, one evening I met her, and she asked why the hell I was so slow. I still did not understand what she wanted and explained my logic. She laughed and told me the other side of the story. Girls, we are very dumb. Please just tell us what you want. Story 18. I am a barista in a small coffee shop. One day I was working, and suddenly I was called out to the floor where my roommate and a very cute girl were sitting at a table. I sat down with them, thinking, oh my god, what does all this mean? I looked at the girl, she blushed and laughed cutely. I turned to my roommate and asked, bro, what is going on? He smiled and said her name and that she likes me. And quickly buried his face in his phone and started typing something. I look at her again, and now she is just smiling and making eyes at me. I tuck my hair behind my ear, just frozen with my jaw dropped. In my head, it was, say something, ask her name. You are acting like a weird silent maniac. I finally say hi and we start talking. Turns out she and her friend, whom I knew, found my social media account and got to my roommate. We exchanged numbers and met a couple of times. Story 19. Her friend invited me on a date, but actually, I was supposed to go on the date to meet her there. A typical college party in a big city, on a roof we were not supposed to be on. The owner called the police. Cops came and sat us all down by the garage in the alley. The owner was there, making a scene about how angry he was that people were on his roof. The cops got distracted dealing with this idiot, and I turned to the pretty girl next to me and said, do you want to get out of here? We just walked down the alley and spent a whole month together. Story 20. Back in college, I was hanging out with friends. A cute girl I knew from class who lived a couple of houses down came up to me and said, hey handsome, could you lend me your t-shirt? I did not think much of it, said sure and led her upstairs to my room. When I turned around to give her the shirt, she had already taken hers off. I gave her the t-shirt and went downstairs so she could change. She left quickly and never spoke to me again. Only a few weeks later did I realize what an idiot I was. Story 21. I was at a friend's wedding. Her cousin asked my friend, he is super cute, is he seeing anyone? When I was leaving, we did not talk at all, but made eye contact a few times. I was flattered but not interested. My friend texted me the next day, my cousin thinks you are cute. If you want, I can give her your number. She was a few years older and attractive. I am still convinced she had a little too much to drink and just accidentally said it. I met her a few years later at a party, and she did not recognize me. Story 22. I went to a concert with a friend, and at the last second he says, I invited a girl, do not hit on her, I think I have a chance. So I acted normal, but thought she was funny and cool. At the end of the night, she asked for my number. We have been together for 10 years. Story 23. We had a freshman pep rally, and as part of the evening, you had to call out the name of the guy you like right from the stage. Most people chose to stay silent, but she called my name in front of 200 people. I am just a regular guy, and I was embarrassed and shocked by all the attention. Story 24. She slapped my ass very hard in the middle of class. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you do not miss new super interesting discussions. In the meantime, we suggest you watch our other videos.